women get stoned for adultery and stuff.
Why do you say women get stoned? Do men get stoned? You keep isolating women.
It's not.
I don't know why you keep isolating women from men. Be careful what people say, and don't listen to everything people say, because there are people that have an agenda, and so they'll tell you stuff that will put you off Islam. Do you understand? So, like for example, do you believe Islam is misogynistic? There's a key question. Do you believe Islam teaches misogyny?
Well, maybe in some countries there's misogyny.
No, I didn't ask that question. I didn't ask do Muslim countries teach misogyny. I said, does Islam teach misogyny? I'm not asking you here to become a Saudi Arabian, yeah, or a Moroccan. I'm asking you to embrace Islam, yeah. So you shouldn't judge my invitation on what's happening in Morocco or Saudi or whatever. Yeah. You should judge the invitation on what Islam is inviting you to. So, do you believe the teachings of Islam encourage misogyny? Oppression of women.
Have you got a cable?
There was one person that said there was like a verse in the Quran that actually says that men are maybe twice the value of women. I don't know if this could be.
No. There's two. Look, the Quran says men are the maintainers and protectors of women. Okay, just as the Bible says that the man is the woman is at the heel of her husband. Yeah, for example. When it talks about the two witnesses, this is what it's referring to. Yeah. Now, people will quote the Quran out of context. Yeah, and without its historical context. Because when the Quran says something, generally something's happening. And now imagine a scenario, you're in a society where women were worthless. Yeah, baby girls were buried at birth because they were worthless. They could be sold and passed off and whatever because they were worthless. And then Islam comes along and liberates them and gives them value and prohibits the things that were being done before to women and give them rights and privileges, give them the rights of divorce, the rights of inheritance. Yeah, things that recently only got English women recently got. All right. So when Islam did that, yeah, imagine now women have had no part in this stuff before. Now all of a sudden they've been given this rights. So if you read the Quran, it's referring to financial matters, financial contracts. Yeah? Not something that women are not au fait with. So it's explicit just about that. If one is, bring another. Yeah?
Just the financial part you're talking about.
Yeah, to understand the gobbledygook, or for example, one woman, by the time you want to bring them as witnesses who might be pregnant or whatever, or do you understand?
Yeah.
So you have two, so if one is or one's not able, the other one is dead. Alright. But it's specifically about contracts. It's not about a court of law, woman needs two witnesses, this, that, the other nonsense. It's just specifically that. But what people will do, they'll take the Quran and they'll take what they like from it that suits their agenda, and then they'll spread that. Rather than trying to understand what it really means, they'll use it to support their agenda.
Like what other, maybe some people say who are anti-Islamic, they'll say a woman who has been raped needs 4 witnesses.
Absolute garbage. What the Quran does say is that if you accuse your wife of adultery, produce 4 witnesses. That's what it does say. Produce your 4 witnesses, and these witnesses have to be honest and truthful and witness penetration. Right? Yeah? So this is for the honour of the woman. You can't just accuse your wife of this, that, the other. You need evidence, mate. And if you only produce 3 witnesses, you're flogged.
Really?
Yes. Yeah? So this is for the honour of women. Yeah? Then if you read in the Quran, women are the twin hearts of men. The Prophet ﷺ, the best of those who is best to his wives. There's another thing in the Quran where a man gets 2/3 of the inheritance, while the daughter gets 1. So the son gets 2/3. Misogynistic, oppression, discriminating. Yeah? Alright. Why? Because the son has to take care of the women of the family with his dough. The woman, she doesn't have to. It's hers. Do what you like with it. So he gets extra because he's got extra responsibility. So the beautiful thing about women in Islam, it's not equal, it's equitable. It's balanced. Do you understand? And that's the beautiful thing. Yeah? So that's my response to the misogynistic claims. And this idea women can't drive in Saudi. I mean, you even know, there's even wisdom behind that. You're in the desert, this, that, the other, and it could be dangerous, being alone out, car breaks down.
That's not in the Quran, though.
No. But this is this is not like this. But we know, could women ride horses in the time of the Prophet ﷺ? Yes.
They could.
Well, we know that Aisha had the white prophet. She led a camel into battle. Yeah, the Battle of Jamal. So we know that, and this is what we use something called analogy.
Yeah, the scholars assess the situation and what's best for the society.
Now that you're looking at the society in Saudi Arabia, use the analogy. Is it safe for women to be driving out? Now, to be honest with you, do I think it's, if you said women have to travel in pairs, I don't have an issue with that. This woman can't drive, I don't know where it's from. And this is why I said to you, don't judge Islam off the actions of Muslims or Muslim countries, judge it off its teachings. And Islam is the fairest to the women. For example, if my wife, do you know she doesn't have to cook for me and she doesn't have to wash my clothes? It's not obligated. Take care of the house, take care of the kids, but you don't have to take care of me. Right? But she takes care of me because I have to go and work. She doesn't have to work, but I have to go and work. Yeah. So for me to be more proficient in my work, it's better for me. I'm fed well and I'm feeling nice and dressed nice, because then I'm going to be more productive in my work. Right? That doesn't say a woman can't work. What happens when a woman goes to work? She keeps her dough. I have to provide the food, clothing and shelter and pay for all the bills with my money that I work hard for. If she goes to work, she can go spend it in Westfield. I can't ask her what she spent it on. I can't ask, can I borrow it? Or can I have it? Or give me some. Do you think this is misogynistic?
Not that part.
Of course not. And the Prophet said the best of those is best to his wives. Paradise is at your mother's feet. Come on, man. Misogyny's got to go off the list. So what's next?
I mean, yeah, just all the talk of Sharia law.
Okay, Sharia law. What's Sharia law? You're talking about the hudud, the head, the cut in the hand of the thief and all that business, yeah? Okay. Why such harsh law? What's the purpose of punishments like this?
What's in BBC, not your phone anymore.
Okay, let's do it this way. What's the purpose of punishments for a crime?
No.
To prevent someone from doing it.
To deter them.
I was talking about that.
Now, would you say threatening to cut the hand off a thief for jacking your mobile phone is a good deterrent?
Yeah, you would think twice if you're robbing that person.
You wouldn't even think about robbing that person.
And then when he said,
Because a mobile phone jacked, so they might get blocked, worth a score maybe, and what, in your hand? But even then, there's conditions to that. The person stealing, is he poor? Is he mentally there? Is he homeless? Does he not have any food? Do you understand? To be honest with you, I was saying to someone earlier, it's probably more rigorous on a rich person who gets caught stealing, because they've got no need to do this. And this is a beautiful thing about Islam. There's no class system. Just because you're rich, you don't escape the punishment. You're probably more inclined to get the punishment because you're not doing it for you're doing it for personal benefit rather than necessity. Yeah. So if I said to you, what should be the punishment of a paedophile?
I wouldn't mind death.
Angamai. Yeah, that's the standard. How many times you hear old men say, "Bring back the birch"?
I don't hear it that much.
You don't hear old men say that. Bring back the birch when they see kids unruly. Corporal punishment.
Oh, right, yeah.
You know, these would be the things you say. Yeah, the cane. Yeah. Why? Because if you have a punishment that is so severe, it will deter you from committing the crime. And that's the whole point of a punishment. Now, if you're so stupid to carry on with the crime, you deserve the punishment, in reality. And like I said, adultery, it's not just a matter of, she slept with him, stoned her to death. No, 4 witnesses, witnessing penetration. That's telling you she needs to adulterate in the public. Well, please, if you need to do that, yeah. And in society, we have laws of decency. You can't do this stuff. So the deterrent is so severe, so you don't do the crime. Why? Because your crime is no good for society, and God wants a good society. Therefore, those who do not fear Allah and God fear the sword of Sultan. Meaning, if you can't be afraid of, because God says don't do it, you don't do it. then fear the law. Yeah. So this is it. You rape somebody, you behave like a paedophile, and all these things, you'll be executed. No question. You murder somebody, your blood is halal. But not just anybody. The state has to do it, and it's not like like Aladdin. Street rat, come here, parata. No, it's court of law, representation, evidence. It's not like medieval. You can still use DNA evidence and all of these things to prove whatever needs to be proven. So why are you against punishments that actually have the effect that they're meant to have in favour of the punishments we have now that don't, because our prisons are full?
Well, maybe in terms of cutting the hands of the thief.
So which one don't you like?
Well, it's both cutting the hands of the thief for robbing and...
No, stealing, cutting the hand of the thief who mugged somebody, for personal benefit, they're the ones, and that's a certain amount, you think that's wrong?
Well, it depends what they stole. If they stole like food because they were hungry and
then there's no punishment for them.
Oh, really?
Who's held responsible then? The state. Remember, this is a society where there's no alcohol, there's no gambling, there's no drugs.
I mean, I don't drink myself.
No. But what I'm saying to you is, so, see, people might get into a situation because they spend the money on drink and they've got no money, they go and rob, or they might gamble their money away and whatever. But the beautiful thing about Islam, it can only operate when the whole system operates. So you have to have a Sharia-compliant land where there is no alcohol available, there is no drugs, there is no gambling and all of these things that can lead to wasting money in that sense. Do you get me? So like I said to you, the punishment, the punishment is there to deter the person. And I think in the time of the Prophet ﷺ, hardly anybody received the punishments, because the conditions to apply the had with the harsh punishment, is so stringent. It's impossible to kind of meet it. For example, this penetration. It's in penetration, 4 people connect. You can't spy on people in Islam. This is why I had this conversation today about homosexuality, for example. If someone's gay in their house doing what they do, it's none of my business. It's none of the state's business to go interfere in what's going on in here. You can't do this. But if they're dogging in the park, it's another story. Give me an example, I'll be straight with you, So the beautiful thing about Islam and the laws of Islam is to protect the individual from society and society from the individual. So if the individual wants to do his thing, it's none of my business in that sense. Unless obviously committing a crime. Alright. But the state is safe from that. And that's the whole point, to have a society that's peaceful, man. You know what I mean?
Does it depend what you steal to get your hand cut off? So if you wanted to steal something highly expensive, your hand would get cut off. But if it's something...
Look, it's like you said, it depends on your circumstances.
Okay. So it's not just black and white as some people make it out to be?
No. Well, Muslims will never make it out to be like this. Only non-Muslims will make it out to be like this. So you have to start learning about Islam from Muslims and from the texts and from the scholars and what they say about this matter. Don't go to Answering Islam or hear someone in the park preach something, because there's a lot of hate preachers here. Don't take that at face value. The beautiful thing about Islam is just. If you want to go out and do these things, then can't do the time, don't do the crime, innit? Simple as that. But in Islam, there's no such thing as like year-long prison sentences or whatever. There's no repeat offenders in that sense. So if you're a murderer, there's no repeating your murder. If you're a rapist, there's no repeating your rape. If you're out of society, that's your choice.
And you save money from that, like if you execute, you don't have to waste money.
But like I said, if they steal and they don't, and because of personal circumstance, they don't, because they're poor or whatever, then the state has to provide for them. But that's one of the conditions of Sharia, that the state has to provide food, clothing and shelter for the poor and vulnerable within society. Basically the welfare state. It's the first welfare state, basically. So this is what Islam teaches. So you shouldn't, that shouldn't put you off Islam. That should drag you to Islam, because you want to live in a society, isn't it, where you're not going to go out and get your phone jacked. You want to go out where you drop your wallet, someone's not going to pick it up and run off with it.
Have
Could you
doors open?
Yeah, you know, in Saudi when they go to pray, they leave their gold shops.
The shops are open.
Nobody goes on house. Do you understand? What a society! That's you know, if this was Star Trek, this would be a utopian society, wouldn't it? Where everyone's all carefree and nobody steals and nobody does this and nobody does that.
No society's like that.
Huh?
I don't think any society's
No, but if you go to Saudi, you can leave your gold shop open and go and pray with nobody there and nobody will go and steal. Is that not utopian? Come on, man. Be fair.
I don't know if that's realistic.
No, but it is realistic.
I'll look that up if that's true or not.
Yeah, check that out.
So that's why it's a gap.
Right, so what's next?
What do you think about the jizya tax? So there's like an extra tax on maybe atheists or Christians.
Okay, how do you understand what jizya is first?
Well, it's a tax, right? It's a tax on people who are not Muslims.
Right, who pays it?
The people who are not Muslims.
No, who in society pays it?
Sorry?
Who in society pays it?
The Christians and the atheists, because they're not Muslims, so they have to pay it to the government. They pay it to the Muslim government, the jizya tax.
For what?
For not being Muslim, isn't that it?
No.
That's what.
Okay. Yeah, again, I've told you to listen to people. All right. First thing, jizya, you are correct, is paid by non-Muslims.
Yeah.
But women don't pay it.
Oh, so it's just the men.
Children don't pay it.
Yeah.
Old people don't pay it. The only people who pay jizya are men of military age. Yeah? And one of the conditions of their jizya is, first thing, they don't have to join the army. And the second thing is, they're places of worship and they are protected by the Muslims. Right? This is what jizya is. The Muslims, we don't pay jizya. We pay zakat.
So it's a charity, right?
It's a percent. No, it's not even a charity. It's mandatory. Basically, it's a percentage of your wealth. It's like cleanses your wealth.
Yeah.
So if you have a certain amount of wealth, you'll pay a percentage of that once a year.
Yeah.
But the non-Muslims don't pay that.
Okay.
Well, you can't live in a society being protected and everything and not pay tax. You got to pay some tax. So the jizya is yours. Now, the history of this, I've said this a few times, but I'll repeat it because you might appreciate it. You heard the story of Andalusia and the Jews living in Andalusia.
The Jew have been evicted.
So basically, the Jews and the non-Catholic Christians were being persecuted in Andalusia in Spain until the Muslims came and saved the day. All right, and then the Jews had their 800 years of civilization protected. Yeah, they restudied their history and they flourished within there. And the reason I got this information was there's a professor called Professor David Wasserstein, right? And he's a Jewish historian, and he wrote. Listen to this. He wrote this article in the Jewish Chronicle. How Islam saved Jewry. How Islam. Now imagine you hear this story. Oh, Islam want to kill the Jews. Yeah. He's saying without Islam's intervention in Spain, the Jews would have been assassinated and wiped out, massacred by the Catholics. But when the Muslims came here, they pushed the Catholics back, and the Jews remained cocooned within the Muslim land, right? And they paid the jizya, and they were protected, and they could get on with their civilization as they chose within the state. Okay.
Yeah, but they couldn't spread the religion.
No, they can practice their religion. Jews don't spread their religion. Practice their religion. Okay. So, and then they had 800 years, and this is what he says. David Wasser. They flourished in that time. Yeah, they had time to study and all of these things because they didn't have to worry about being attacked because they were protected. Anyway, after 800 years, Isabella and Ferdinand raised a huge Catholic army and managed to push the Muslims out of Spain. So the Muslims were retreating back to Morocco. All right, they gave the jizya back and said, "We can't protect you no more."
Oh, right, really?
Right? We can't protect you no more. And the Jews said, "Keep it. Let us come with you." Yeah? And they came with the Muslims to Morocco.
So not only to Morocco, they went to all Muslim empire, even through Turkey.
Alhamdulillah.
Yes.
So was that like in the 1200s or something?
This is in 1492.
1492. Okay. So imagine the scenario, this idea that Muslims are supposed to be persecuting Jews and whatever, for 800 years protected them. Yeah? So are we filming? Oh, sorry, it's okay. I don't think you're being filmed, don't worry. So for 800 years they were, you might be actually, I'm not sure. For 800 years they had security, and then when the Muslims left, they wanted to come with them, and like my brother here says, they went throughout the Muslim empire. Now that's jizya in action. Because why? Because you got the protection. So you shouldn't have any problem with jizya.
It was a protection externally from and internally if a Muslim harassed
They were protected from that.
Complain to the wali, which is the governor, and they will any complaint.
Sorry, David Wasserstein.
The wali will sue any Muslims.
We'll put a link on the video.
Been harassed by a Muslim.
Do you still think it's relevant today to have this tax?
It would be if we had an Islamic governed state as we did in the past, because that's the practicalities of it. So if you lived in it and you wasn't a Muslim, you would pay the jizya, and in return you wouldn't have to join the army when they had to go fight and defend or whatever. You wouldn't have to do that, and plus you would be protected and your society would be protected by the Muslims. Is that not fair? Or would you rather not pay tax?
Rather not pay tax.
An ideal world, mate. You get that? Who's going to build the roads? Anyway, so jizya is not a problem. What else?
There's another thing. If a Muslim converts to another religion, they get killed. Like, don't you think that's quite oppressive?
Okay. Have you heard of there's a beautiful verse called La ikraha fi din. There's no compulsion in matters of religion. Okay. In the Quran, Allah speaks about those who leave the religion and come back, leave the religion and come back. Yeah? So where's the killing here?
In some Muslim countries, if someone converts from Islam,
What did we say about Muslim countries?
well, there's different cultures.
What did we say about I'm not inviting you to be a Libyan or a Moroccan or a Saudi. I'm inviting you to Islam, the teachings of Islam. So what is Islam? So I've just showed you what the Quran says about those who leave the religion and come back, leave the religion and come back. The verses that are used, the hadith which are used with regards to what you're saying, are in historical context, and it's to root out the spies within the Muslim army. Okay. Yeah. See, when you quote a verse of Quran or hadith, there's always historical context behind it. But the haters of Islam and the haters of preachers, especially here, the J. Smiths and the like, they'll never tell you that. They'll just act like, yeah, kill it, you know. Come on, how can you say La ikraha fi din? There's no compulsion in religion, and then you kill someone. Me personally, good riddance. I'd rather somebody say they're not a Muslim anymore and don't represent my beautiful religion if they're doing things that are hypocritical towards my religion. Yeah, I'd rather Bismillah. You understand? But no need to kill you. But again, in Islamic State, this is a different story, because within the Islamic State, you could cause fitna or a tribulation in the society. You understand? You might start trouble causing. So then you might be asked to leave the state.
Yeah. That also links to I think I read one part in the Quran. You'll probably say it in a context of war, where Muslims like wage war against disbelievers or something. Is that only in war, or do you?
What did I say to you? Historical context.
Yeah.
Look, the Arabs, you don't need to teach them to fight. Okay, you need to teach them patience, sabr. Yeah. So for 13 years they had to have sabr, patience. While their homes were looted, while their possessions were stolen, yeah, while they were abused by the pagan Arabs.
Yeah.
Then the verse came to now it's finally time to take back your stuff.
Yeah.
So what does the verse say? Fight those who fight you, and turn them out from where they turned you out, and kill the unbeliever wherever you find them. But if they stop, then you stop, for Allah loves not the transgressor. So the permission here is now what? Go and take back your stuff. Yeah? But if
when Prophet Muhammad was fighting the Quraysh tribe.
yes. Okay. Well, you've got to understand the history that, you know, they were in Mecca. There were pagan Arabs in Mecca, and the Prophet Muhammad had to come to them and tell them, stop worshipping statues, worship the one God. And so for that he was persecuted, and the people who followed him were persecuted to encourage them not to follow him. Then they were exiled into the desert, yeah. And then the mandate was made. You can't, like the Jews were in, you know, with the stars in Germany. You cannot trade with them, sell them bread, marry your daughters to them. None of this. Basically, they exiled the merchants who used to travel to Mecca were told don't trade with them Muslims. You understand? And it was only because of the city of Yathrib, yeah, came to him, and because they knew his character and they knew his ability to govern, in the sense of he was like an arbitrator. So if two warring parties had a dispute, he would come with the wisdom to heal it up. So this city came to him and invited him.
So there was some diplomacy in Islam.
Of course. So he was invited. Everything you'll hear in Islam, even about Bani Qurayda and all this business, yeah, it's all about treachery and reneging on contracts. And if you have a diplomatic relations with somebody, like, have you ever played the board game Risk?
No.
You heard of it?
I know.
Yeah. So you're like, right, I won't attack you there, you don't attack me there. Yeah. And then all of a sudden I attack you. Yeah, you ain't gonna trust me no more. You're gonna get retaliation. Yeah. So in real life, if you're saying to people, I'm not gonna attack you, we're gonna have a treaty, and then so I can relax now on that border. I don't have to worry about you, and I'm doing my thing, and all of a sudden you get an attack. What do you expect? Yeah, the contract's going to break, isn't it? The peace treaty's over. Yeah. It's like the IRA and the Good Friday Agreement. If they broke it, then the treaty's over, isn't it? So this is the whole thing. If you break a treaty, the consequences to that, aren't there? Because the treaty was to stop something in the first place. Yeah? So if you read the Quran, there's a beautiful verse where it says, and you are not instructed to be, what's the verse? To have, you're not, prohibited from being kind to those who don't fight you.
Surah 60, verse 8. Be righteous for those who didn't expel you.
Yeah. So when you vote a verse like kill the unbeliever wherever you find them, don't forget the verse that says that. You're not prohibited from being friends with these people who cause you no harm. So what's it telling you? It's telling you that these verses are clearly talking about retaliation. Now you have to understand one thing about Arab culture as well, yeah? They love revenge. Revenge is their thing. Yeah? Tit for tat, boom, 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 boom. You get me?
A tribe could disappear with another tribe, just for one man, for instance, who was belonging to one tribe.
Yeah? So Islam eliminated that. This idea of revenge. Because people say this, right? They say, the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, the surahs, when he was in the Mecca, were peaceful because he had no power. Then when he went to Medina, then they become kill the unbeliever and all that business, right? But the question has to be asked this. When he returned to Mecca with 10,000 men, why did he not execute revenge on everyone? Why did he forgive them? He had the power now. If he was this bloodthirsty, kill anyone who says anything against him, why when they returned to Mecca did they not deal with the people who didn't? So
I don't know the story.
No, but what I'm saying is the missionary will say to you is this. In Mecca, when he spoke, he was meek and mild because he had no power. And then in Medina, where he had the power, then the verses of war came. Obviously. And this is why it makes no sense, because I had a debate with Liz today. They said, Jesus never said this. Jesus never did that. And I said, what about Moses? She goes, I'm not talking about Moses, I'm talking about Jesus. Well, what's the difference? Jesus was never a leader. He never had the power to go execute him or do this or do that. He didn't have that authority. Yeah?
Do you think he would have done that if he did have power to?
Okay, let's understand the Trinitarian Jesus, yeah? According to Trinitarian Christians, Jesus is God. Yeah? Now, if Jesus is God, that means in the Old Testament, Jesus is God. Yeah?
Not in the Old Testament, New Testament.
No, if Jesus is God, Jesus is God. And the God of the Old Testament is the same God.
Oh yeah.
You cannot say Jesus is God incarnate now and then he wasn't incarnate earlier. You cannot say God is a triune God now but he wasn't triune earlier. You cannot say when God speaks now in the New Testament it's not the same God speaking in the Old Testament. It's the same God.
Yes.
So if you want to claim Jesus is part of a trinity of God, so when God speaks,
why I'm not a Christian.
Yeah. So when God here's the hypocrisy of the Christian. The beautiful, I won't say beautiful verse, but it's a beautiful expose.
Yes.
In I think it's the book of Numbers, it says the Lord told Moses to go and utterly destroy the Amaleks. I think that's what it's called, right? So what happens now is the Muslims, the soldiers go and they destroy all the men, kill all the men, and they bring all the women as captives and children, because that's the standard of war. You kill all the men. The Vikings did it. All the civilizations did it. You kill the men, women are the booty. Yeah, that's standard. So all the women and children were brought, and the soldiers reported back to Moses and says, we've killed all the men. And Moses got angry and says, but you've left all the women alive.
Oh, right.
kill all the women and all the small boys, and leave alive only the young girl that has not yet known a man. Now, how the soldiers of Moses could go to these girls and determine whether or not they've had sex or not, I don't know. All right, I don't even want to think about it. But 30,000 girls were taken. And what were they done? Shared about them. Shared amongst them. And a portion was given to God. Don't know what that means either. So the question has to be asked. God, Jesus, according to Trinitarian Christians, instructed Moses to kill all the men, women and children, and then take 30,000 little girls, poor little girls, lost their parents, lost their aunts, lost their brothers, all alone, and then share them amongst yourself.
Yeah, I don't agree with that.
No, this is what I'm saying to you about Christianity. This is the inconsistency. So that's Jesus there. All right, now let's come to the New Testament. Jesus made a parable, about a king, and says, though mine enemies, they will not submit to me, then slay them before me. Right? Jesus says these words. Jesus told his disciples, go get swords. Yeah? When Jesus went to the temple, this is not your Jewish synagogue around the corner. This is the temple in Jerusalem. This has guards. So how did Jesus go to a temple, yeah, and start causing chaos? He could only do it with an army. Yeah? Right? And then you have this beautiful verse Christian missionaries love to peddle, brush the sand from my feet and walk away. Yeah? They love to say that when you're not listening. Jesus told me to brush my sand from my feet and walk away. Just the dust from my feet. But you got to continue the verse. Because Jesus says after that, because those who will not listen to you, the fate of Sodom and Gomorrah will be nothing compared to what will happen to that city or town. What?
Right.
So Jesus is...
He'll destroy the temple.
He's going to... No. Jesus says when he returns, he's going to slaughter everybody who refuses to believe in him. This is Christianity. Well, who's going to tell you except me? So here's the point. Here's the principle here. This is the inconsistency with the missionaries. Yeah? This is Jesus. Now, we know Jesus preached for maybe 1 to 3 years. Yeah? He was never a leader. He never had the power to have somebody executed or not. So to say, oh, Jesus never did this and never did that, it's not a fair comparison with Muhammad. What you could do is compare Jesus' 3 years of ministry to the first 3 years of Muhammad's ministry. And let's compare that. That's fair. Did he kill anyone? Did he do? No, he didn't. But you're now taking 23 years of a man's life where he's become leader of Arabia effectively, having to deal in negotiations, trade, war, this, that, the other, and you're trying to compare the two. And the biggest problem you have, you think Jesus is God, not you. Christians think Jesus is God. So how can you compare anyone to God? It should be standard that Jesus would do these things if he's God. Do you understand?
Yeah.
So when you say to me, do you think Jesus would have done that? Jesus is going to do that.
I'll look up that verse where he takes all the swords to that temple.
No, he doesn't take the swords. He says to his disciples, go get your swords.
Yeah.
And those who don't have swords, sell your garments and buy swords. Okay. So basically, arm yourselves.
Yeah.
All right. Jesus says, think not I've come to bring peace. I've not come with peace, but with the sword. So I don't know where this peaceful thing comes from. All he did was verbally and physically abuse the Jews at every occasion. Yeah? He called you and me dogs, the Gentiles. Yeah? So this is the Jesus of the New Testament. It's not the Jesus we believe in as Muslims. Yeah? We believe as a mighty prophet sent us for the children of Israel, no issue with that. We believe on his return, the Christians are going to become Muslims because he's going to tell them the truth about himself. But then the Jews will still reject, and they'll accept the false Messiah, which is the Antichrist, because the Antichrist will come first. The Jews will think he's their Messiah and follow him. Then Jesus will return. The Christians will follow. Yeah. So we don't believe in this random slaughter. Yeah. So that when I said would Jesus do the same, when you asked that question, would Jesus do the same? He promised he's going to. Worse than anything.
He says, I'll try to look up that when I get there.
Inshallah. Any other?
Do you know when Islam spread, when it spread by the sword, did they just invade other countries, or did other countries, attack Islam first, and then Islam had to defend itself?
Okay.
How comes it spread so?
Basically, it's very, very simple.
Yeah.
You're living in the age of empires. Yeah. You got the Romans on one side, you got the Persians on the other.
Yeah.
Like I said, not the most peaceful of nations. Enslaving and dominating, and funny enough, they never tried to invade the Arabs. Why did they never try to invade the Arabs? Because you could not rule them. They're always tribes fighting, this, that, the other. This was one amazement of Muhammad ﷺ, that he united Arabia in a way that no one could even fathom. You took in these, they were savages. And now you've built them into one of the greatest civilizations of all time. You know the story. So you got the Persians, you got the Romans, you got the random tribes, you got this, that, the other. Yeah. So let's say, for example, I went to your town to teach you about Islam. Yeah. And you were listening or whatever, and then your army or your people tried to stop me doing what I'm doing. Stop the people listening. And then the Muslims raise an army to fight that army, so the message can be spread. Because the army has no right to stop you hearing. You understand? Yeah? Understand? But we have to ask ourselves a question. If Islam is spread by the sword, why is one of the most densely populated Muslim countries in the world, Indonesia, didn't receive any armies?
That's a good point. I don't know.
Yeah. Now, if you want to talk about
non-Muslim army in West Africa went there, and Islam is there.
If you want to ask about the spread by the sword, ask yourself, how did Christianity get into South America?
Oh yeah, through the
Conquistadors, the Portuguese and the Spanish. Yeah. Well, how did Christianity come to England and Ireland?
I think that was
and Germany.
Was that through missionaries? I don't think that was through invading Christian armies.
Sword mate, Charlemagne. Yeah.
I thought maybe that wasn't France, not England and Ireland.
No, I'm talking about Europe.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, Ireland used to be Unitarian, believing in one God and Jesus as a prophet.
Yeah.
Now it's Catholic. So something happened there. You know, Catholics have been killing Protestants, Protestants have been killing Catholics throughout history by the sword. Yeah. So I mean, the Catholics in Andalusia, where the Muslims came to defend the Jews there, yeah, they were forcing people to convert. The Inquisition. What's it all about? Yeah, forced conversions here. Any religion spread by the sword was Christianity.
I will tell you something. Justinian, the Roman Emperor, he makes some laws that any pagans, any cult would be forbidden. And if someone doesn't belong to Christianity, he would be put in death. That's why Justinian, the Roman Empire, decided. So you see, it means that there is some compulsion even in Christianity in the beginning of the spread of the Christianity.
I told this story earlier, I'm going to say it again. A guy called Michael Servetus, yeah, he was not a believer in the divinity of Jesus. He was a Christian, but he didn't believe Jesus was divine and part of a Trinity. But you had to conceal these thoughts because it was heresy, and you'd be burnt. Right. So Luther, I think it was Luther or Calvin, he challenged in the Reformation the authority of the Catholic Church, yeah, and the Pope as the representation of Jesus and such. Michael Servetus thought he was rebelling against Trinity, so he was warned not to do it, but he travelled to explain his thoughts to Calvin. Calvin or Luther, I get the two mixed up. But the point here is this: he was put on trial for heresy. Now listen to this. He was tied to a stake. This was the court ruling. He is to be tied to a stake with his book tied to his belt. He wrote a book against the divinity of Jesus, right? Tied to his belt and burned as a warning to anybody who thinks like this. Well, this is what happened to them. So the Trinitarian concept was forced on people. people. Did you know this? The whole country of Holland was sentenced to death by King Philippe for refusing to accept Jesus as divine. And his armies actually went there and started killing people. Yes. Yeah, in Holland. Holland, Netherlands. Yeah?
Coming of the Jew when they've been expelled.
So, if any religion was spread by the sword, Christianity and the rack and the wheel and all them flipping torture devices the Spanish Inquisition like to use, yeah, you couldn't say you weren't a Christian, you'd be burned at the stake, or you'd be, and you had to be the right kind of Christian as well. 1 minute you had to be a Catholic, next you have to be a Protestant, because the kings, queens switched. You know what I mean? And you know, in the Catholics, one person's a saint, and then the Protestants take over, that same person becomes a heretic. One man's saint and another man's heretic, depending on who's in charge. So talking about being spread by the sword, no. Because I'll tell you why, I'm a Muslim today. I've been a Muslim now, mashallah, coming up 16 years. Did anyone come to me and force me? No. Could anyone come up and force me? No. Even in a situation where people could say, yeah, you're a Muslim, I'll kill you, or yeah, I'll be a Muslim. Doesn't mean I'm going to be a Muslim, does it? How do you know I'm a Muslim or not? How do you know if I'm making, I'm just praying, am I just doing what I'm doing? You understand? You can't force someone to be a Muslim. You might force someone to adhere to Sharia law. If you drink, you're going to be whatever. But you can't force someone to believe God is one and all this business. You can't force that. You know what I'm saying? So, no, you can't spread Islam by the sword.
I'm not sure about that.
Okay, give me an example.
Because, well, yeah, what I've heard from people who are anti-Islamic, yeah, that Islam spread from Spain to East Pakistan through the sword. Like,
what did we just say about these people who are not authorities on Islam, who have an agenda against Islam, telling you things and twisting it out? You have to stop listening to these people. Because everything look, if they were here now, I would refute everything they have to say. You understand? Islam did spread. We have no issues with that. Why did it spread? It's a religion of intellect. Remember that Arabs were traders. They were merchants. This is how Islam spreads. What, like he said, how did West Africa become Muslim when no armies went there?
Well, you have India. India was ruled over 1,000 years by Muslims. And you know, majority of the Indians are not Muslims. Yeah? If they were Muslims, they were for a long time. There were no non-Muslims in this country. They were by sword. Yeah. Realize that.
Why were the Jews of Andalusia not forced to become Muslim?
800 years.
800 years of civilization they had. Why were they not forced to convert? The Catholics were trying to convert them. But why did the Muslims not? If spread by the sword. La ikraha fi din. There is no compulsion in religion. This is the Quran. La ikraha fi din. There is no compulsion in religion.
Can I say something? If you go to Egypt and the desert of Sinai, there's the oldest church. If you go in that church now, is the letter from the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. How he has given the permission to, nobody can force him to convert to Islam. The letter is there in Arabic, in English, translated, and I have a copy which says everything that not by force. Islam not by force. It says it's a translation of the last.
See, look,
the letter.
Allah, God Almighty in His wisdom, doesn't want you to be forced to worship Him.
Of Sinai Desert.
He wants you to choose to worship Him.
In Egypt. And this,
what's the point of forcing you?
This, my brother took a picture from Egypt.
I'll probably have to
and brought it.
I'll have to do my own research.
That's fine.
Just end on a humble note.
Huh?
I just end on a humble note.
No. As long as you're sincere with that. You know what I mean? Don't be afraid of recognizing Islam as the truth. Yeah? And if it involves changing your life, alhamdulillah. Because here's the thing, you see. Truth is not defined by geographical locations or anything like that. It's based on reality. Yeah? The best way of life for you, what's your name again, sorry?
Thai.
Best way of life for you is Islam. Because if you follow its guidance, you'll keep safe.
Oh.
You don't drink anyway. You still gamble anyway, do you? You gamble?
I have sometimes. Yeah.
But what I'm saying is this: if you look at the teachings of Islam, they make sense as a human being. You get me? But do you believe in God?
Yeah, I believe in God.
Alhamdulillah. So you're halfway there. Do you believe God is the only thing worthy of worship?
It's the most highest form. Yeah. It's the only thing you should worship.
So if God exists, His law should stand, then, isn't it?
Sorry?
If God exists, then His law and guidance for mankind should be the law and guidance for mankind.
The thing is, I don't believe God made us a law. That's the thing.
So you believe God created us and left us blind? So what did He do then? See, you have to question it. If you believe in God and you believe God created us, then you have to carry on working it out. So if God created us, why did He create us? That's the next question. And has He left us alone, or has He sent us guides? Has anybody claimed to have connection to this God? And then when people make the claims, you test their claim. Yeah? So we look around in history, we see men have claimed to have connection to God. And we see the prophets and them were given miracles in their time to prove they were messengers of God. Because we know God is metaphysical, we know God is outside our scope of senses and of what's natural, supernatural. So for example, parting the Red Sea. There's nothing, if you believe in God, believing that is standard. Why, if God can create the heavens and earth from nothing, then I'm sure He can part the sea if He chose to. Because He can go outside the realms of physics. You accept that, obviously. Or not? You accept miracles of God?
That's one thing I'm questioning. I don't know.
Do you believe that God could have an effect on the earth? Yes. And could that effect on the earth be outside the realms of physics? If He created the physics?
I'm not sure.
Logically, I'm talking.
I think I would say no, because there's no evidence to prove that.
What do you mean?
To prove that if God exists and parts the sea.
So if the people of the time witnessed it, then they would have proof. But what you're saying is you didn't witness it.
I heard, I think there's one part of the world in the sea where it actually can split.
No, that's what I'm saying to you. But the people of the time, when that sea parted, or before the sea parted, the 7 plagues of Egypt that they witnessed, okay, that convinced them, yeah? But you didn't see that, yeah? Fair enough? So you can, did it happen, did it not happen? Is that a natural phenomenon that occurs somewhere in the world, yeah? I have no issue with that. When Jesus, when He did His healing the lepers, raising the dead, you didn't see that either, did you? But the people who were there believed it, didn't they? So from their testimony, they believed, but you've not got, they had the proof, because they've seen it. You've got the proof, have you? Alright. What was the miracle of Muhammad that convinced the people that he was who he claimed to be?
He was illiterate and he wrote the Quran or something?
No.
That's what I've heard. I heard that he wrote the Quran.
Who told you that?
Oh no, wait, someone else wrote the Quran and he was reciting the verses of God.
Right.
Is that it?
So let me ask you again, what was the miracle of Muhammad sallallahu why the people of his time believed he was who he claimed to be?
I'm not sure, you can say it.
The Quran. The Quran was a miracle.
Okay. Oh, you believe the Quran's actually a miracle?
No, that was a miracle they believed, isn't it? And today, why do I believe in the same man was a prophet? Why?
Because you think it's a miracle.
Because the Quran again. Now, what's so miraculous about the Quran?
I mean, you believe it's a way of life? Muslims believe it's a way of life?
No. The question is this, you see. Is the Quran natural or supernatural? Are the words natural or supernatural?
Supernatural.
You believe they are?
I believe the Quran is supernatural in that case.
You do?
Yeah. Well, how come? Well, I know the Quran. The Quran is written. That's natural. But the way how you received it is.
No. Well, I'm not about what people say.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the Quran today and its words.
Yeah.
Do you believe it's natural or supernatural? The source of it. If you believe it's supernatural, then you should be Muslim, man. Unless you think it's the devil.
I don't know if Prophet Muhammad talked to the angel Gabriel and then...
No. The words that were brought, yeah, do you believe they're just some words of a man who was a bit intelligent, who may have spoken to people and learned a bit of the Greek history and a bit of philosophy and learned some about the Old Testament and cobbled it all together and created this book? Or do you believe this man received this information from the God you believe in?
No, he didn't receive it from God.
You don't believe that?
No, I don't.
Why not?
Because he got it from Gabriel. The angel Gabriel.
And who sent Angel Gabriel?
That must have been God.
So whose words are they?
God's words.
Right. So you believe that or not?
No, I don't believe it's the word of God because there's some things I don't like about the Quran. Or the politics side. I don't have anything against the
Forget that. Let's just deal with the miracle first. Okay. If it's supernatural,
Yeah.
will you accept it from God? If it's supernatural.
No, because I haven't witnessed it. That's the thing.
No, if it's well, you can read it. Have you read it?
Yeah. No, I haven't read it. I've read the first 30 pages.
Right. If it's supernatural, who could it be from?
I'm not sure.
Well, sorry, from
If anything's supernatural, you can say it's from God, or you can say it's anything.
no.
Yeah.
If something's supernatural, you can say it's from God, or you can say it's from the devil.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can say it's from
See, the Quran only has 3 authors. There's only 3. Either God is the author, either the devil is the author, either man is the author. Yeah? You agree with that? Right. So, if we eliminate man as the author, then we're left with 2. Yeah? Hamza. So let's eliminate man. Yeah? Alright, alhamdulillah. Do you think it's man right now?
Well, a man wrote it down.
No, I didn't say that, did I?
The words of man.
I said the source, the words that he's saying. Could a man
It could have been from a spiritual experience.
of what? Of God or the devil?
Yeah. Or Angel Gabriel. Because that's Angel
No,
Gabriel.
we know the angel. Alright, so if it's angel, that's God.
No, the Angel Gabriel's not God.
If you believe in Angel Gabriel, then
If angel Gabriel is a messenger of God,
Yeah.
it's like if the king sent a messenger. Yeah? The messenger comes, I bring a message from the king, and he starts reading, and the king he's talking to, when he hears those words, does he think it's the messenger's words or it's the king's words? But the messenger's reading them.
Yeah, the king sent the message.
So the message belongs to whom?
God there.
So if the angel is a messenger,
We God.
alhamdulillah. So if you're saying the supernatural force is Gabriel, then that's God. If you're saying the supernatural force was a demon, then that's a devil. Yeah? If you're saying it wasn't supernatural and men cobbled it together, we can eliminate that first. Do you want to eliminate men?
Yeah.
Alright. Let's eliminate men. When a man does anything, so if for example Muhammad ﷺ lied and he made this story up about this visitation in the cave, and he wanted to create this new religion for his own benefit, yeah? We need to ask the question why. Because man will only do something to benefit himself in this sense. So what's his motivation?
To spread Islam.
Why?
Because he believes this is the word of God.
Why? We just said he's lying. So he's lying, he's going down to the people and lying and telling them lies, and he's receiving persecution and oppression for it and being exiled in the desert for it, for a lie, right? Let's test that. Was he known to be a liar? No. He was known as a truthful and a trustworthy. He was the man, if you were to travel, you'd leave your possessions with him. He was the man who would arbitrate between tribes. So he's not in his character to be a liar, first thing. Second thing, he was married to the richest woman in Makkah, and his uncles were custodians of the Kaaba. So he had status and he had money. So why? Why for a lie? lie? Why lose all that for a lie? Yeah. When he was given this call, they offered him status. They sent his other uncle to him and said, tell your nephew, we'll give him riches, we'll give him position, we'll give him any woman he likes, but tell him to stop calling the people to this one God. And his response was, when they put the moon in my left hand and the sun in my right hand, I would never give up this call. Right. Another indication was when one of his sons died, there was an eclipse. And somebody said, look, you know, even the sun or the moon is, you know, simply representing this. Now, he was a liar. He goes, yeah, you see, told you. But what did he do? He rejected this nonsense. Yeah, this has nothing to do with my boy, basically. I'm paraphrasing here. But you understand? This is not the actions of a liar. First thing. Second thing, did he have the ability, if he wanted to, go against his nature, right, and give up his heritage of the city and his security and receive persecution? Did he have the ability? Well, when the Arab poets were sent to him, yeah, when the Arab poets sent to test what's he got, where's he coming from? This man's illiterate, where's he getting his words from? What was their response? He's mad? No, not the words of a madman. He's a liar? No, he's not a liar. It's magic, it's sorcery. So the people of the time of Muhammad ﷺ, who were experts in the Arabic that he was coming out with, said it's supernatural. So, and I think in the time of...
Someone was there with him?
No. He recited it and people memorized it. It was after it was written.
Okay, they memorized it and then later on they written it?
No, he had authorized scribes who he would commission to record what was being said. Yeah? But the words, when the Arab poets came, now I'm not saying the Quran is poetry. I did say that in the past, but I was corrected on it. It's beyond that. All right. But the Arab poets who know poetry, because they likened it to poetry because of the rhythm and the rhyme, but the meaning was another level, right? They concluded that this is sorcery. So they knew what's going on here is beyond the realms of man. Yeah? And the 5 greatest poets of Arabia who lived were in that time. So this was their conclusion. That this is sorcery. Now if it's sorcery, that's not man. And we know he's not a liar. And we know it's not in his nature. So he hasn't even got the motivation to do this. So I think you should, if the one thing you can do, Ty, is rule man out, I believe. Unless you can give me another reason how you can combat that.
Well,
because that's profound.
Okay, I don't know if Prophet Muhammad received this word from God.
You could be the devil.
The thing is, I just don't like some parts of the Quran.
Oh, we'll come to that.
Parts of the Bible.
Let's forget your subjective opinions and what emotional things and how you feel and whatever. Let's deal with the source of it, because you can challenge God after that. You say, okay, why did God say this? Why did God do that? You can't say God doesn't exist or it's not from God because God would never do that, because then you say you know the mind of God and you know the wisdom behind what's being said.
Yeah.
Could the devil be the author of this book?
Yes, he could, but I don't believe he is.
He could be.
He could be, but I don't believe he is the author.
Right. The only people who believe in the devil
are Luciferians.
They're the Christians.
Naive Christians believe in the devil.
That's you've heard it before.
Naive Christians.
Naive Christians, because they don't understand something. Jesus was charged with the same accusation. When Jesus was healing the demon-possessed, the Jews came and accused him of having a demon that was creating a charade. Yeah? And what did Jesus respond? The devil cannot stand against himself. A house that is divided cannot stand. So Jesus says Satan's not capable of opposing himself. Yeah? So I'm going to do the Christian side of things because there'll be Christians watching, so we want to give them a little bit of a slap. Right? So they never repeat this nonsense. Alright. Does the Quran support Satan or oppose him?
It opposes him.
Right. Does the Quran praise Satan or insult him?
It insults him.
Does the Quran call you towards Satan or tell you to seek refuge from Satan?
Seek refuge.
Is he a friend or is he an enemy?
He's an enemy.
Is he something to be trusted or is he a deceiver?
He's a deceiver.
So we have 5 reasons here why the Quran can't be from Satan. Because Jesus says Satan cannot do this charade. Alright? That's the first thing. Then we look at the teachings. Does Satan want man to know about God's existence?
Yeah, I don't know.
Does Satan want man to know about his existence?
I heard no.
What was it Kaiser so say? The greatest, what was it, the usual suspects? The greatest trick the devil ever pulled was to convince the world he doesn't exist. Yeah? Why? Because if you have an enemy, but he's hidden and unknown to you, the enemy can attack and assault you and you'll have no knowledge of being attacked and assaulted. But if you're aware of your enemy, you can look out for their attacks. You can prepare a defense against it. So the last thing the devil wants you to know is that he exists. Because if you know he exists, you're going to prepare defense against him. Yeah? So again, it makes no sense why would the devil expose himself, call himself cursed, to warn you against listening to him, show you how he's going to attack you. Why would the devil do that? Then, what does the devil want from mankind? He wants mankind to be away from God, disobedient to God, yeah, messed up in their lives, yeah, heedlessness, like my man here, heedless of what's coming. This is what he wants. He doesn't want to warn you of a hellfire and that you have accountability in your lives. He wants you to YOLO. Yeah?
This Christian here.
No, this atheist here. Atheist, isn't it? Yeah? He wants you to YOLO. You only live once. He doesn't want you to be concerned about a hereafter. Yeah? So that you reflect upon your life, that you try to do good things. Is this devil, or does devil want confusion and mischief and mayhem? Anarchy.
It depends what archetype of the devil you look at.
Well, I'm referring to the devil referred to within the Quran. What archetypes? Sorry, forgive me. I always like to deal with hecklers. Okay, what archetypes of the devil are there?
That song, Sympathy for the Devil, from the Rolling Stones.
I'm sorry, I'm not au fait with the Rolling Stones. Continue.
Oh, okay, they wrote a song, Sympathy for the Devil, and that archetype of that devil is someone that gives free will to the people and sort of is...
So you're saying the devil has the ability to give free will?
He sort of like helps the rationale of humans.
Right. It helps the rationale?
Yeah, like so the story goes that if you're just like blindly following God, the devil comes along and says, come on, look, there's a dangerous world out there, and you could maybe learn about it.
And what's the other archetype?
The one you were saying.
So my archetype is this. Let's just so we can establish this here. And be careful listening to song lyrics thinking they're real. Alright. My archetype...
Say the same about that book.
Which book? The Quran. Do I need to do the old thing? I watch the video, please. I want you to do this, please. Watch the video, yeah? And I want you to respond to it then, yeah? Because I give him a challenge here why man could not be the author. Yeah? Why man couldn't be the author.
Oh yeah, I did a little bit of research on this.
Oh, do you want to defend him?
No. So I did jump into his position because I thought he was being quiet.
Huh?
Okay, yeah, I will say contradictions in the Quran.
Give me... What do you mean by contradiction?
Just where it doesn't really add up to either the real world or the internal logic of its own structure.
So you're saying the Quran contradicts the real world?
Sometimes.
Give me one example.
It said that we come from a clot or blood or water or clay.
Right.
We don't come from blood, clot, water or clay.
Do we not?
I don't think so.
What's clay made of?
I'm not sure of this.
Matter? Made from matter?
Oh yeah, clay's made from...
Made from water?
Water's made of... Hydrogen.
Made from blood?
And oxygen. We are made of... Well, we've got water in us.
So it's a blood, water, what else? Clay. Matter, what else?
Clot, I think he said.
Right.
Clot. And the earth.
So the earth?
Yeah.
Okay, but you believe you're an atheist, yeah?
Yeah.
Do you believe we're made of the same thing as the earth is made?
When you get down to it, eventually.
No, now. Are we not made of the same atoms?
Well, hydrogen is not the same as carbon, is it?
No, what, in its finest detail?
That's what I'm saying. So
you don't believe we're the same matter as this tree, for example?
Well, you would say uranium is the same as...
No, I'm asking about tree.
Okay, so the tree is made up of carbon.
All right. So, let's just bring this up. So what you're trying to say, this is what he's trying to say, that the Quran gets it wrong on embryology and how baby... Yeah?
Yeah, embryology is not... Yeah.
Are you an embryologist?
No.
All right, and which embryologists support you?
Sorry, what's the question?
Which embryologists support your idea that the Quran's wrong?
Wikipedia.
What's his qualification?
Wikipedia is a crowdsourcing information gathering.
All right. Have you heard of Dr. Keith Emeritus Moore?
No.
The guy who wrote the book Developing Human? No? Professor of biology?
No, sorry, I haven't heard.
Dean of faculty in some university? Not anymore. Okay. The guy who was in Saudi Arabia who confirmed embryology in the Quran?
Okay.
The guy who says this could only have come from God? And he's not a Muslim.
Okay. No,
So how do you...
I'm not familiar with...
All right, how do you, with Wikipedia, challenge the testimony of a professor of embryology? He says you're wrong.
Yeah, I know, but Wikipedia... Well, so I don't know his ideas, yeah?
Keith Moore is Canadian, and he received the Nobel Prize.
Do you know what he said? In California, not California, I think it was in Texas, one of the universities in America, you can Google it and you can YouTube it, yeah? He was asked, why are you not Muslim?
Yeah.
So, see what happens, he did this talk in Saudi Arabia. And what people try to claim is, he was coerced, he was feared for his life, so he would just say anything. All right. So years later, he goes around lecturing, yeah? And he was asked, why are you not Muslim? And he said clearly, he goes, my father was a Christian minister, and I was brought up as a Christian. And therefore I felt I needed to stay with what I've been taught with my father. He says, but if I didn't have a religion, I would become a Muslim. And then he said, he goes, but I find for you my words are stronger because I'm saying these words about the Quran and about embryology, and I'm not a Muslim. So it carries more weight because he's got no vested interest here. He's not just supporting it because he believes it as a Muslim. He's not a Muslim. So you brought the mud to the water, and yet an embryologist completely refutes you and your Wikipedia. Yeah? So you have to be very, very careful of spouting nonsense.
I agree with that very much. So we should look at the availability of knowledge. Yeah? So this is just one guy with one idea. Yeah? Then you credit him with a certain...
One guy with one idea, and all he's done...
You interrupted. One guy with one idea, and then you credited him with a certain amount of authority and also like peer-reviewed credibility. So he's not just an idiot, is what I'm saying.
You are not an embryologist.
No.
Right? You have come from Wikipedia.
Yes, yeah.
And you're saying something that Professor Embryology completely refutes.
That you have claimed to refute.
Google is your friend, my friend.
Pardon?
Google is your friend. You're going to watch this video, aren't you?
That's actually my point. Probably not, but that's actually my point.
Why not?
I might do actually, now that I'm in it.
Well, you have to.
Well, watch this.
Are you here to learn, or are you here just to spout nonsense?
No, I am here to learn.
Right, so I said something to you can't verify. Go and verify it.
Yes, however, I was going to make a point about the availability of knowledge, yeah? So you're saying this one guy has got an idea, yeah? And then I said he's accredited, you accredit him with a certain level of authority and academic, peer-reviewed credibility, yeah?
Guy wrote a book called The Developing Human, which is usually like in King's College. Go on.
There you go.
On embryology.
So yeah, you're raising him up. I don't...
No. What I'm doing is this. No,
because you think I'm attacking you. I'm not attacking you.
No, but I don't care. I'm going to tell you exactly what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're trying to say, and I'm not even going to apologise for this.
Don't.
Of course, I'm going to tell you what his credentials are. Yes. Because if I tell you the guy was a professor of the moon. One second. I know. What do you mean? I think I am.
Because I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying it's fine if you want to credit this person with, if you want to try and bolster his ideas, it could be a good idea. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying, let's say he's the head of King's College London or whatever, a university. Yeah? I'm not going to come towards the embryologist of that institution with my Wikipedia data. I agree he's higher than me in the information. But why is his view not on Wikipedia?
Sorry?
I want to have a wider discussion about the spread of information.
What's Wikipedia?
Wikipedia is a crowdsourcing, information gathering encyclopedia.
So who inputs on it?
It's crowdfunded, so it's anyone.
Anyone?
Yeah.
So can it be trusted? Or does it need to be verified?
It can be trusted in the sense that,
what do you want to say? Have you Wikipedia'd him?
No.
So what have you Wikipedia'd?
Wikipedia embryology, just the Quran says it goes, first we make the bones, then we put the flesh on it.
Alright.
Then I got from Wikipedia, it says, no, it starts with cartilage and flesh together, and then the bones form out the cartilage.
Right.
So therefore, to say it the other way, that bones came first, is wrong.
Unless you've misunderstood the Quran.
Yeah, that could be one example where my case is wrong.
So what happens, you see, the enemies of Islam are very clever. They'll take a word. Oh, sorry, let me rephrase that. The enemies of Islam think they're very clever.
I was joking, I'm joking. I understand it's I'm just trying to be funny.
This isn't just for you. No, I don't mind you. But you're right, I need to put that caveat in. Think clever. Right. I shouldn't give, they're not clever, they think they're clever. Because what they do, you see, they'll take a word in Arabic.
I'm not the enemy of Islam.
I know. They'll take a word in Arabic, which could have many meanings, and they'll use the meaning that supports their agenda.
Yeah.
So the word that's derived from this verse in the Quran is called thumma. And thumma can be used for past, present and future.
Okay.
It could be simultaneous. Yeah?
Okay. This is where I'm going to have to say, I'm a simple man and I deal with simple things. I can't deal with like translation of words and things like this. I have to take it on sort of face value and just how it's interpreted in a wider thing. So I think
here's what you got to do. Let me give you a tip. If you don't mind. If you want to understand what the Quran's saying, yeah, go to the scholars. Go to the people who studied it.
Yeah, but I think there might be a great trick going on.
What's the trick?
It's like backwards rationalisation. Let's say the Prophet made this Quran, and then people followed the Prophet, and they quite liked the way he acted and what he said.
I really want to demolish this idea of man altering the Quran again, but we've done it.
If you really wanted to just make a new religion, just to get recruits, shall I say, or converts, then why didn't?
No, don't worry. We'll take his details.
So why didn't he make the things that people like permissible? Like, for example, in Islam.
Can you know my swapping details, do you? So we can continue this.
In Islam.
Yeah, alhamdulillah, that's fine. I don't want it to be lost on you. I want you to watch the video, and I want you to come back.
Loads of people.
I invite you to.
Muslims.
And when I say come back, challenge what I've said. And when you can't, surrender to your creator. Yeah?
Permissible. And then the whole world